Namaste, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Today we have a really interesting podcast. Today, my guest, I'm so happy that she's here. It is 17-year-old Lipika Devara, who is the founder of A.W.E, which stands for Addressing Wellness and Equity. I was going to say A should start for like awesomeness, but because she is awesome, she's a rock star. But AWE is basically a nonprofit that aims to build a future where healthcare has no boundaries, which is an interesting statement. I'm going to ask you about that, Lipika, later during our interview. And AWE has previously worked with organizations including UNICEF, the American Red Cross. I believe, Lipika, your organization has and your team have also spoken at Washington, D.C. So she, like I said, is a rock star. And Lipika, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Anything that I haven't included, and also where did you get the idea to start something like this?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Yeah, my name is Lipika, as you said, and I'm a 17-year-old that is like in the midst of like high school, junior, senior, just college apps and etc. Some of my hobbies are music and stuff, just like a normal student.
I can see the
And
cello in the back.
yes, we have previously talked about that, yes. But yeah, basically, saying and play instruments, that's my thing. But how I kind of got about to start this organization was actually through Red Cross and American Red Cross. I was kind of a team lead there, and we did like similar work that in sorts of like campaigning and doing a lot of events that were related to a global initiative that you were interested in. And that kind of
Mhm.
like sparked some interest because I already had a team that was working with me to, build these campaigns for American Red Cross as an intern. So I was like, why not build this to a broader scope and create something that I can call mine and that I can work and really build towards and grow. So I had this idea and I proposed it to my team, and now here we are.
Awesome. And Lipika, where are you based?
I'm based in the North Texas region, so Frisco, Texas.
Oh, okay. I lived in Dallas for a year.
Oh, okay. That's so nice to hear.
I feel that like, okay, so this is like not an Illinois thing, right? Because I grew
Oh,
up in Chicago. So if someone says like, oh, I'm from Chicago, oh, I'm from Springfield, everyone will be like, yeah, cool. But
no.
Texas, I think if you've lived in Texas or if you're part of Texas, they're like, yeah, Texas, great.
I've heard of like a lot of different people kind of like, oh, you're from Texas, the yeehaw state, like kind of like mocking in a way too, but also like,
Oh
oh, that's
man.
so cool.
Luckily, I've done well. I love Dallas. I think it was a great time when I was there. It's still one of my favorite cities. But yeah, Lipika, I think one of the biggest questions that I had for you is, your like I said, the mission statement of yours, right? You aim to build a future. Your nonprofit AWE aims to build a future where healthcare has no boundaries. How is this possible? Like, what do you mean by this statement?
Yeah, of course. So basically, when you're just kind of going through the process of nonprofit and the registration, just, getting through building your nonprofit, mission statement comes across. So we were
Yep.
really thinking about and what our organization strives for. Me and my team really thought hard. And we all are, like pre-med track students and we're just kind of or computer science. So just some people that are really just passionate about healthcare in general. And we're all from like immigrant backgrounds that have seen our countries go through like the lack of healthcare that has been going on, or just the lack of service. And we just wanted to spread awareness and do anything that's possible in our hands, to make the difference that we can. So I feel like, building a community where healthcare has no boundaries in terms of technology, biomedical technology, engineering, just to improve the healthcare world is what we're striving for, whether that be through like recognition through wonderful people like you, and or just working on projects with other organizations to build that awareness with youth and
So
etc.
can you name like a project that you've worked on?
Yeah, of course. A project that we worked on we did a fundraiser and with a charity called Onejummah Charity. They are a charity in Uganda, and we were so grateful to work with them to able to fundraise for them, especially with the not a lack, but definitely just like the not the resources that proper resources they don't have to aid for the people in their country, and they're well-driven, passionate people that wanted that help. So we really wanted to help them out. So we did this fundraiser to help with like basically aid for them to give food out, food supplies and stuff like that. And we raised about almost over $100, and we were able to give it to them through a bake sale and did a podcast with them where they, gave a little bit more information about, like what's going on with them, like the gender biases in their society, the hunger, and just et cetera like that.
Awesome. So let's touch upon. I really want to focus on mental health just because it is such an issue in India. It's something that students and I would say young professionals really struggle with over here because of, I mean, honestly, in the bigger cities, there is some awareness about it, but not really, right? I mean, India's looking for more psychologists, more psychiatrists, just because they don't exist in schools. They don't exist, and there's no counselor that students like you. What are you? Are you a junior or senior in high school?
I'm going to be a senior in high school.
Oh, congratulations. So a lot of seniors in India, they don't have this option of, if things get overwhelming, they can go to a counselor for help. They can go to a mental health professional for help, which is a normal, I would say there's definitely less of a stigma in the US compared to India about it. The fact that there's a stigma at all about it is kind of sad. But um, how, what is, I know that you work with a lot of international organizations. Do you see this problem regarding mental health around the world?
Yes, definitely. As far as organizations that we have worked with, Uganda and stuff, there's a lot that goes unaddressed, especially because over the stigma with mental health. And, in India, especially, we see that in other countries, not just India, it's just very like under hidden and it's always just brushed off. It's always compared and it's like temporary. It's always just like, oh, it's temporary. It's just a feeling or it'll go away. It's not just that. It always has these correlating effects to your physical health, your well-being. So I feel like it's always brushed off and it's just a big topic that really needs to be addressed.
What are some of the stigmas on mental health that you see, especially in international countries?
Yeah, for sure.
And by
Especially
international countries, I mean country, you're based in the US. So for you, international countries.
yes, of course. Basically, I see it as the stigma being, oh, again, like it's just temporary. It's not, it's just a feeling. It's not like there's no, like, when you get like a doctor report for your physical examinations, you have something that can validify your emotions or what you're going through. With mental health, it's with your mind, so you can't really quantify that in pain or, something, in those terms of measures. And another stigma being like, especially with immigrant households is a lot of generational trauma that's passed on, and you don't know how to deal with that, and stuff like that. I feel like are just very like stigmatized, and it's always like, oh, it's like you're a
Okay, so let's wait, hold on. I can relate to that actually, like generational trauma that's passed on. A lot of our viewers in India may not exactly know what that is, Lipika. So I mean, when I was in it wasn't that bad for me. I didn't have trauma, but I knew what it was because a lot of my friends really struggled with it. It was kind of this expectation, I would say, to hold Indian values and then try and somewhat adjust it to the US, which is a totally different culture. And of course, you can do it, but I think you need a really encouraging atmosphere. I feel that a lot, and not on purpose, like a lot of parents, they kind of put that sort of pressure, but it's pressure in the wrong way, which leads to trauma, I would say,
right.
right? And
Yeah.
then the kid or the student has nowhere to kind of turn because most of the counselors in high schools they're not of the same culture, so you can't really, so they kind of deal with it in a very sort of generic way, I would say. And even like, I mean, most of our parents, they were like, why do you need a counselor? Why do you need a shrink? Why do you need to go there? You don't need one. So I can you explain what generational sort of trauma is?
Yeah, so basically, it's just kind of like generation trauma is trauma that, your parents have gone through with their parents and has just been passed down to them. So they have no other way. They were never taught to, like work on upon themselves so they don't pass that on to their children. But, it's just kind of like unintentionally through the protection, their good intentions just kind of pass it on. So you don't know how to deal with that, especially when you're having that identity crisis with, are you too
Yeah.
American or are you too Indian?
a high school identity crisis. I think we all
Oh,
went through that, to be
oh.
honest. Um, but yeah, where do you feel, Lipika, that mental health really stands today, especially in schools? Because you are a student right now, but you do have a nonprofit as well. So I'm going to extend the question to you. Where do you think mental health stands today in schools as well as in the workplace?
Yeah. In schools, especially, I feel like I would have a little bit more insight in schools in general. I feel like schools in the US, we are working towards it. You know, we're trying, there's the teams like Hope Squad and stuff that are installed, programs in our school that are trying to, make a difference and take that governmental stance on mental health. Like it's always those like intimidating hotlines you have to call every time that you're facing this like uh, disease that's just like something that you're always like named towards, but I feel like there's definitely an improvement being there, but it's just going to take longer because it's just a stigma that's been there for so long and so reinforced in our minds, and especially to get our parents, to turn across that. But yeah, I feel like it's going on a ascending scale, and also in the workplace too. I feel like their employees, especially I see with my parents as well, there are days that they can take off work, and I feel like it's just progressing, especially in the US, but it still takes time to really, really enforce that idea.
And where does AWE then come into play? Like, supposing, I don't know, there is a school that is struggling with mental health, a lack of awareness of mental health in India. Where would AWE come in?
Yeah, which is perfect. I'm glad that you answered that, like asked that question, because we are really working towards connecting with the youth. So we're starting off with the US and making these school chapters where kids can, start their own club, and really advocate and get these students the help that they need. And we're also working on an upcoming project with an organization named NERV, and we are creating a 5 to 8 to 5 hotline where it's peer-to-peer based hotline where peers interact with peers so that they get that
Oh,
connection
great.
aspect. Yeah,
That is
without it being
cool.
intimidating.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I think, Lipika, before we started, you said that you may have had some questions for me. Do you have any questions? Because I know we're reaching the end mark of our talk.
Yes,
If you don't, that's fine.
no, of course, I have questions. I was so grateful to meet you through Seva, and I know you mentioned that you did your education in Harvard, and you moved to India right after, even though you got like multiple job offers. I know I wanted to kind of get an insight of like how you made that transition because I know you're like so excited. And,
um, it was unplanned. I had several job offers in the US before I graduated from Harvard, actually. So there was no plan
Whoa.
to move down to India. Um, I mean, I'm sure I've said it before, but I just used to go to India. I used to play tennis as a junior. So I used to train in India and the US. And, Chicago has very, very harsh winters, unlike Texas. It's still cold in Texas, but you can still manage. It's not like Chicago. So I used to go to India during that 1 month or 2 week vacation and sort of train because it's good weather in India. So my version of India was just kind of going home and enjoying and going to my grandparents' place and having really good food. I'm not sure if the training was very effective because of the amount of food that I used to eat, and then just kind of getting on a flight and coming back. Um, I was actually asked to join Prime Minister Modi's election campaign in 2018. So, to be a part of the 2019 Lok Sabha elections. And they kind of asked me, what do you want to do for the effort? And my passion was journalism, media. And I said, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel for him because I didn't think that there was any presence in English. For him, and I thought that it would just be a good idea. So literally it started as just kind of walking around, and my job was basically to talk to youth and engage with youth and get their issues in India on ground. And it literally started out of pure laziness. That's where the idea came from, because I was kind of like, okay, I can't write all of these things down, so let me just start recording them. Then we started kind of posting them online because they were really relevant issues. Like mental health was a big one. um, there were these kids, I remember college kids that were wishing that, everyone knows, everyone in our class knows about mental health. We wish that there were some inclusivity classes on mental health or some education on mental health. That's officially part of our curriculum, and there's nothing. Or even if there is, like, there are classes outside, we're willing to actually spend the time to take them. And we wish that our parents could take them as well. So very, very interesting answers. A lot to do with curriculum, mental health, healthcare, which is why I really wanted to have you here. And I just thought it would be a great way to kind of travel and see India for what it was. 'Cause like I said, I grew up in Chicago, and being in India was my version of India was very different from the rest of what India actually is. So I traveled all across the country, north, south, east, west, northeast, everywhere. Um, in the span of like a year and a half for the election. So essentially, I was a YouTuber. And the channel did really well because there's so much misinformation out there on social media. All you need to do today is like what we're doing: send a link, get online, talk, right? And if you're on trend, it'll go viral. But that doesn't mean that you've been there, done that. So a lot of the stuff that we did was actually going there, doing that, showing people the ground reality, showing people the truth, talking to youth in different parts, like tier 1 to tier 3 India, getting their take on things. And I think just exposing the truth really got the channel going. So my work was shared by the Prime Minister on several occasions. And from there, I actually met a guy, got married to him. Which was absolutely not part of the plan. I was supposed to come back after the campaign, but now I have a husband, a dog, and a baby over here 3 years later. But yeah, it's been fun, and now I work in mainstream media in India, and still continuing to kind of uncover, battle misinformation, as you can say, and interview rock stars like you, just so that people get inspired by the work that you do. I'm sure they will after this. And yeah, that's about it.
Oh my gosh, that's truly amazing. Honestly, I was also, when I get older too, I wanted to plan to like move to India. So you're just like another inspiration to me. That's
Well,
so
you should, because I think you'll find a lot of work. I think you'll get to, a lot of these schools, if not all of them, need some kind of mental health awareness. Unfortunately, some have just started implementing them after they've had some student suicides. That shouldn't be the reason why you implement mental health. I'm glad that they finally did, but these are only, like, I would say, the elite institutions in India. We really need this type of thing in government schools, in the local schools, and we need people like you to do good work across India. So I really do hope that you come. And yeah, but anyway, I am going to end this podcast because I think I've spoken too long, as usual. But Lipika, do you have any final thoughts for people that are watching right now, as well as people that will see this podcast?
Yeah, final thoughts. I'm just grateful that you guys are viewing this podcast. But if you guys want to give us a follow, our Instagram is A.W.E @_NGO, and you can see more of our work there. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Lipika, for joining. I know it's super early for you in Texas. You have a great day, and all the best to you.
Of course. Thank you.
All
You too.
right, guys, we are signing off. This is Lipika and Priyanka saying bye. Namaste.